The anime kicks off with a guy named Tamaki getting stabbed over and over again. The girl doing the stabbing sounds totally unhinged as she yells his name. Her knife starts glowing, and before long, Tamaki's life slips away. To his surprise, he wakes up and finds a weird green creature chatting with him. It introduces itself as Gaburo and shoves a giant, gross bug down his throat. Gaburo is too worn out to do much else, so he dozes off again. When Tamaki wakes up the next day, he sees Gaburo surrounded by what he calls a bunch of ugly green babies. It hits him that he's one of them, leading him to realize he's died and been reborn as an ugly little goblin. 3 days later, Gaburo realizes that goblins grow up way quicker than humans, as he's noticed some serious changes in himself, if you know what I mean. He gets super pumped when he discovers he has his voice back and feels really nimble. Instead of stressing out, he decides to just appreciate this fresh start. Gaburo does his best to adapt to his new life and makes it to day 4. The guy who's been feeding them tells all the little goblins that after this last meal, they'll need to find their own food. They all dig into the bugs, and Ro is the first one to step outside. Just like before, there's one sun and a blue sky, but the birds are pretty ugly. The tons of unfamiliar plants around him make it clear that Gaburo is definitely in a whole new world. Gaburo teams up with Gabkichi, the largest of the goblin kids, because he can really help out during hunts. Together, they chase down a unicorn bunny, with Gabkichi doing the chasing and Gaburo finishing the job. When Gabkichi tries to eat the bunny without sharing, Gaburo steps in to remind him that they're supposed to split their food. After setting things straight, Gaburo gets curious about using the bunny's horn as a weapon. Suddenly, he has a weird vision that tells him he's got the horn now. He's confused, but decides to keep going. As Gabkichi digs into the food, he gets super emotional and thanks Gaburo for the meal, even shedding a few tears. But Gaburo wishes he'd just focus on eating instead of crying like a little bitch. On the 5th day, they go after another rabbit, and this time Gaburo finds the horn really handy as a weapon. He takes another horn and sees the vision again, but he brushes it off to enjoy their meal. Then, he has another vision where a voice tells him he's learned a skill called Escape. This confirms something he had a hunch about. Gaburo then shares that back in his old world, he was born with a super rare ability. Gaburo has this cool ability called Absorption, which lets him eat pretty much anything and pick up traits from whatever he eats. I guess he's a real muncher. Thankfully, he still has this power, but it looks like all his other past life abilities have been wiped clean. While Gaburo impresses Gabkichi by catching a rabbit, he reflects on how lucky he is that Absorption is the one ability he retained. In this world, there are loads of monsters with some seriously awesome powers. On the 6th day, a goblin girl named Gomi is shocked to learn that the guys have been munching on horned rabbits. Gaburo thinks it's no big deal, but Gomi reminds him that someone recently got killed by one of those rabbits. She recognizes Gaburo as the leader and admires him for being clever, cool, and strong. Gabkichi wonders what she thinks of him, but she just sees him as pretty average, lol. Gaburo invites her to join their next hunt, and she happily agrees. The following day, it rains, so they decide to delay the hunt to the day after. Gaburo takes a trip to check out the group storage to see if he can whip up a new weapon. He comes back with materials for crafting, but he can't shake off what else he discovered in the storage. Gaburo stumbled upon a bunch of captured human women, and while the reason for their situation is pretty clear, Gaburo prefers to avoid thinking about it. The elder keeping an eye on him is named Gabi, and he's the one who gave Gaburo his stupid dumb name. Gabi seems impressed with Gaburo and mentions that he might level up quicker than the rest. Gaburo is confused about what leveling up means, so the old guy tells him to tap his head. When he does, a voice chimes in, revealing that Gaburo is at level 86. Gabi explains that once he hits level 100, he can evolve into a more advanced being, but he doubts Gaburo will make it since he thinks he's an idiot. LOL, nah, just kidding. It's just pretty rare to hit level 100. Interestingly, goblins age super fast, so this old dude is only 20 years old. Gabi mentions that the others will be back soon, and Gaburo will get to see what an evolved hobgoblin looks like. The old goblin laughs maniacally, wondering what kind of prey they'll bring back this time. On the 8th day, the guys head out to hunt, and Gomi tags along. Gabi is in charge of the whole operation. Gaburo is holding his ground in the middle while Gabkichi charges ahead. Their trio of goblins is really effective, allowing them to take down bigger monsters. The food is so good that Gabi gets emotional since she's been living off fruit alone. When Gabaro digs in, he picks up some cool traits from the snake, like venom resistance and something called Evil Eye. It's way more impressive than what he got from other creatures, showing that this snake is something else entirely. The rest of the gang is lost on what he's saying, and Gabkichi is itching to munch on the snake's head too, but that's a no-go since it's toxic, and the others would be in serious trouble if they tried it. Gabaro is starting to adapt, so he tells them that his looks don't matter. He's all about surviving in this new life. Days 9 and 10 were just more hunting, but on day 11, they made a rookie mistake by heading into a cave. Their teamwork really shines again, as Gabaro has Gabkichi use his shield to protect them while he unleashes Evil Eye on the bats attacking them. This stuns the bats, leading to an easy win. They chow down on the bats afterward, and Gabaro gains echolocation along with a few other perks. Some goblins have their fair share of bad traits. They're chowing down as usual, but we notice a few others are left starving, just watching them. That night, a group of goblins sneaks up on Gabaro while he's sleeping, but he's always got his senses on high alert. He quickly figures out they're planning to jump him and takes down all 6 of them. One of them ends up worse off than the rest, and Gabaro realizes he might have messed up his venom mix in his rush. He's ready to teach the others a lesson, but Gabby is even more furious. She gets a bit too freaky and starts to choke one of the attackers, so Gabaro steps in to try and calm her down. On the 13th day, our crew faces a much tougher monster. Gabkichi gets knocked back, but the smart Gomi manages to disarm the orc. Gabaro then breaks its leg and tells the others to sit back and watch as he takes care of it. After he finishes off the orc, he gains the ability to speak orc language, boost his freak, and something called Detect Analyze. After some folks gave him a hard time, Gabaro decided to take the leftover food back for everyone else once his friends were done eating. At first, the others were a bit doubtful, but Gabaro reassured them it was all good. They expressed their gratitude and dug into some delicious food for the first time. As Gabaro watched them enjoy their meal, he reflected on how he would have never thought about helping those in need back in his old life. He noticed his appearance had changed since arriving in this new world, but he couldn't help but wonder if there was something deeper that had shifted within him too. Later that night, while Gabaro was sleeping, he had another vision. It talked about how his level values had surpassed expectations and that he had met all the special requirements. There was something about evolving, but Gabaro was too sleepy to pay much attention, so he just hit yes and went back to Dreamland. One last note popped up saying he had received the blessing of the grand god of demise and origin. When morning came, Gabaro noticed he resembled his old self much more. A glance at Gabkichi showed that he had evolved too, and Gomi was amazed, pointing at her friends in wonder. They've really bulked up and gotten way cooler since last time. Gomi can't believe they've both leveled up already, especially since it's only been a month since they came into the world. Gabkichi is itching to try out his new strength, so Gabaro figures he's ready for a hunting trip. But to Gabaro's surprise, Gabkichi wants to test his skills by sparring with him, and Gabaro is totally on board with that. The two pumped-up hobgoblins step outside to show off their improved fighting skills. Gabkichi struggles a bit with his speed, which lets Gabaro take the win pretty easily. Gabkichi is blown away by Gabaro's strength, but Gabaro points out that Gabkichi still hasn't outmatched him in raw power. Suddenly, Gabaro picks up on some trouble nearby and catches Gomi off guard when he realizes she's been hiding close by. He reminds her about the crossbow they crafted the day before and tells her to grab it. We then see the source of the danger, a pack of wolves ruthlessly chasing down some rabbits, while an orc runs away in sheer terror. Unfortunately for the orc, the wolves take it down without breaking a sweat. Gabaro decides these wolves are the perfect challenge to test their new abilities, so he has Gabi kick things off by shooting one with an arrow. Gabaro and Gabkichi then dive in to start taking on the wolves. Gabaro reveals he coated Gabi's arrows with his venom, which makes it easy to take down the wolf leader. Gabaro notices that the wolves are all over the place and not working together, which makes it easy for him and his crew to take them down quickly. There's just one wolf left, but it doesn't last long either. Gabaro figures out that this one is the leader, so he decides to eat it, gaining some military leadership skills in the process. Like the Sigma male he is, he shares more food with his group, but tells them they need to start hunting for their own meals. They're worried they won't manage it, so they plead with Gabaro to teach them how to hunt. Gabaro agrees and even offers to show them how to make weapons, which makes them super grateful. He brushes it off, saying it's no big deal since they're all in this together, and they start cheering for him. Gabaro feels a strange sense of clarity about his future in this new world. He plans to keep eating to get stronger and then lead his friends toward his ultimate goal, which makes him smile. Fast forward 4 days, and Gabaro is feeling a bit down about how much his comrades still need to learn. They're putting in the effort. He's taken aback when he accidentally stumbles upon Gomi. On day 17, the captive women ended their lives, and Gabu held a quiet memorial for them alongside Gabi. Fast forward to day 24, and Gabu was busy training the other goblins. He had also been munching on any promising enemies he could find, picking up a bunch of new skills in the process. Suddenly, another group of goblins showed up. Gabu got ready to defend everyone, but GBG stopped him, saying they were their raiders. Gabu was taken aback to learn that these raiders were actually the fathers of his generation of goblins. They had captured another group of human women, and the wicked goblins were pleased since the last group had taken their own lives. It turns out goblin DNA is so potent that when they mate with other species, they still have goblin offspring. Gabu gets the urge to reproduce, but he's not cool with the situation. He asks to take care of the human women himself, which only angers the raiders. Gabu's fellow goblins are ready to back him up, but this just starts to create a rift between the two groups. Out of nowhere, 2 goblin girls show up to tell both sides to chill and stop the whole civil war thing. They're Habub and the Mage Hops, and these clever girls come up with a genius plan. Let the leaders from both sides duke it out, and whoever wins gets to decide the village's future. The raider is itching to teach Gabu a lesson, and Gabu is totally down for the fight. It wraps up super fast when Gabu pulls out some mysterious string. Everyone's confused about how he did it, so Gabu explains it's just something that comes from him. He reflects on how he learned to produce spider silk after munching on a demon spider. The girls are blown away that someone like him popped up while they were away, and Gabu proudly declares himself the new leader of the village. He asks if anyone has a problem with that, but no one steps up to challenge him. Gabu then tells the humans he's ordered everyone to keep their distance. He won't bother them either, and they'll figure out a way to send them back to a human village. The girls are curious if they'll need to pitch in, and we find out Gabu isn't entirely altruistic. He's after the humans' knowledge. He starts asking them questions and discovers that these girls were part of a traveling business when the goblins attacked, leaving only them as survivors. On day 28, Gabu is taken aback to see the girls looking happy. He realizes they haven't really moved on. They're just putting on a brave face to make things easier. Gabu whipped up a meal for everyone, hoping it would make a difference. Among the girls, there were 2 sisters who were both cooks and tailors. One of them wore glasses and dabbled in alchemy, while the other, a bit scatterbrained, was an appraiser and a blacksmith. Then there was the redhead, a newbie warrior, and Gabu figured he'd include her in their training later on. He pushed everyone hard during training, throwing insults their way whenever they started to tire out. For the next few days, he prioritized group workouts over hunting, drilling them on the new rules he established. On day 31, it rained, and Gabu and Gabkichi engaged in some serious sparring while everyone watched in awe. That night, Gabu sensed a group of goblins was about to break his rules concerning the human women. He swiftly took down one goblin and restrained the rest, reminding them of the rules and punishing one for talking back. Gabu apologized to the women, and the redhead ended up crying in his arms. More goblins showed up, so he told Gabkichi to take the restrained ones outside and asked Go to gather the others for a little demonstration. Outside, Gabu used the restrained goblins to send a clear message. He beat them mercilessly to ensure everyone understood the village rules. The message was received loud and clear, and Gabu let them go. He stopped just short of killing them, but unfortunately, Hopkin, who took the brunt of the punishment, didn't make it through the night. On day 32, Gabu's crew showed off their awesome teamwork again by taking down a tri-horn horse. It was a real challenge, but that just meant Gabu got a bunch of new skills. One of them is called Tri-Burst, which lets him land 3 hits in a single swing. Later that night, the redhead crashes in Gabu's bed, and he notices that the previous night's events might have really shaken her up. Gabu reassures her and lets her stay with him for the night. But when he wakes up, Gabu notices that Gabi has joined their group too. On that same day, they discover that the female goblin, Gabi, has evolved into a hobgoblin. Overall, things are running pretty smoothly. Gomi is leading the ranged unit, while Gabi is in charge of their armed forces. Habub takes care of the mobility unit, and Gabby has stepped up to handle rear support, focusing on chores. Hobbs is supposed to lead their mage unit, but for now, she's the only mage in the village. For the rest of the day, Gabu decides to leave the training to the captains and ventures deep into the forest to hunt various prey. He experiments with some demise magic and is blown away by its power, easily taking down a strong Trihorn with a single strike. It hits him afterward that this magic has made him a bit too cocky, leading him into the northern forest. There, he stumbles upon a bizarre area filled with blood and recalls Gabby's warning to all goblins: never enter the northern forest. Inside lurks a terrifying crimson beast known as the Red Bear. Gabu finds himself face to face with this creature, which effortlessly tears through a Trihorn. The Trihorn's armor, which was tough for them to breach earlier, poses no challenge for this bear. Just then, the Red Bear shows up, and Gabu realizes that a regular person would probably flee. But Gabu isn't just any person. He's eager to fight it, defeat it, and devour it to see what abilities he might gain. He plans to unleash every weapon he has, starting with Phase 1 demise magic. Back in the village, Gabby starts to worry since she hasn't spotted Gabu for a while. The others are in the same boat, which only adds to her anxiety. Meanwhile, Gabu is taken aback when the Red Bear sacrifices its right arm to counter his demise spell. The bear launches a series of attacks, and Gabu realizes that the fancy armor he got from the Trihorn isn't going to cut it. He decides to go on the offensive and aims for the bear's head. To his surprise, his weapon fails to break through the bear's skull, and he gets sent flying. Gabu tries to trap the bear with some string, but it breaks free and unleashes a powerful fire breath attack. The forest goes up in flames, and Gabu needs to heal his injuries. This attack is alarming since he's never encountered a fire-breathing bear before. Realizing he's up against a serious threat, Gabu understands he might have to take some hits to come out on top. He charges in for another strike while shielding himself from the fire. The bear is tough, but Gabu cleverly turns the fire breath against it, stabbing right through its mouth. He feels a sense of accomplishment, but it quickly fades when he sees it wasn't enough. The fierce bear sends him flying again, and Gabu tries to minimize the damage. He still takes a heavy hit from the bear's overwhelming attack, concluding that this round is a tie. His blade remains lodged in the bear's mouth, preventing it from using its fire breath again. Despite this, the bear shows no signs of giving up, and Gabu realizes he's just one attack away from losing everything. Even at a disadvantage, the bear crazily claims that it would only make him taste better. Gabu presses on, landing some hits, but it's still not enough. He tells the bear he's ready to eat it and charges in for another attack, but this time, he loses an arm. On day 34, Gabu finally triumphed in the wild battle, but it was a close call for him. He gets to feast on the bear and gains a bunch of awesome traits like heavy damage and overpowering strength. He passes out shortly after, but it's clear he's leveled up and met all the requirements to evolve into a rare ogre species. With his consciousness slipping away, Gabu just hits yes, without even glancing at the details. Fast forward to day 35, and Gabu is still munching on the bear, racking up even more insane traits. He grabs his knife, which suddenly looks tiny, and he's stunned to realize he's turned into an ogre. When he heads back to the village, everyone freaks out, thinking they're under attack. They're ready to bolt, wondering why the ogre is grinning at them, wishing Gabu was there to help. Thankfully, Gabi spots him, but instead of being amazed by his transformation, she's furious about his long absence. She ends up hurting herself in her frustration, but still gives Gabu a piece of her mind. She's upset about his lost arm, but the rest of the villagers are in awe that he took down the Red Bear. Gabi is the most shocked, pointing out that he managed to defeat the Master of the Northern Woods just a month after being born. Everyone has a ton of questions for him, but Gabu is just relieved to have made it through and found his place in this new world. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more anime content.